And we're back where we left off. Let's pick up here looking at this entry about checking the weekly module regularly. Those of you who've already been on here will realize that I have added something since you first were, actually a couple things, since you first had access to this, and we'll move ahead and look at those. For this entry, read chapters 1 and 6. Chapter 1 would be reading for this week, week 1, and then chapter 6 would technically be for next week. As you read chapter 1, I really focus on what the social sciences are and how those are part of social studies. And then as you read chapter 6, really focus on, of course, chapter 6 is about strategies, instructional strategies in social studies. Reflect on your own experiences, your own perceptions of what social studies is and how you experienced it through school. And then as you look at these strategies, see if you make any connections to some that you may have experienced. Particularly, look at the one about inquiry-based social studies, page 224 and 225, because you will be doing work with developing inquiry kind of lessons. This book doesn't explain it real well, but that's all right, because we're going to be putting some time in it, including what we're going to be looking at next. So the next entry here is entry number 1 in what we call the social studies collection. So I refer to them all as SSC number. You will ultimately be doing 9 of them through the semester. And these are really for a few different purposes. One, to reinforce some things that we do in class, but more frequently, they are to address some areas that we don't necessarily have time to look at in class. Sometimes they will involve some reading and some videos, and then you'll respond to those. So each one of those will be different, and you'll generally have about a week or so to do those. So let's look at the first one you have for this week. You are going to think about, you're the teacher in the 4th grade class, and you're asking your students an overarching question. Is it best to live in Anchorage, Seattle, or Phoenix? Well, how would you answer that? Well, they probably are going to need to have some resources then that they can look at that will help them draw their own conclusions. You're going to first identify 2 social studies standards, and I just realized that I need to post that video for you, which I will do soon. You're going to identify 2 social studies standards that could be applicable to this question in 4th grade social studies. And you're going to provide both the numbers and the written standards. And then as I post a video about how the standards are organized, that's going to be very helpful to you. So we'll come back to that part. But then you're going to find at least 3 different resources, 3 different kinds of resources. Think about what students would want to know and what would the students' families want to know before making that determination. What kind of resources do you specifically need to provide for them? And I don't want to give you examples because that sometimes can limit what you might otherwise come up with. So I'm just going to say that you need at least 3 specific resources, and you're going to provide the links for those. So what do they need to know to be able to make relevant comparisons among these 3 very different cities? Once you've included that information, you've given them the how-to, now you're going to become that 4th grader, and you are going to write a conclusion that would reflect you're using those resources, what you found to be most engaging to you as a 4th grader. Maybe you really hate cold weather, and so there's no way you're going to live in Anchorage, but you don't like really steamy hot weather either in the desert. So, maybe then you're going to go with Seattle, but you would need more reasons for that other than just climate. So you're going to write just a short paragraph, something that a 4th grader might actually write from using those sources. And in doing this, you have just created an inquiry mini lesson, an inquiry activity. You're providing the students with the question and the resources to answer it. And then the students are going to engage in the sources and they're going to draw their own supported conclusions. So this is your first introduction then to creating an inquiry kind of activity or mini lesson. And I will post a video up here that I think it's about a 12 or 13 minute in which I walk through the standards and show you how they're organized and what to look for. So I will recommend that you watch that video before you work on this social studies inquiry lesson question. And this will be due before we meet for class on Wednesday, the 18th. Now back to this, and this is something that I included because it's relevant to week 3 and I wanted you to have time to look through it. You are going to become a historical figure. You're going to become a historic Oklahoman and give a presentation and develop a timeline. I'm going to, I'll post more of that information for week 2, but for now, I will have the information available concerning the assignment itself and your options for choosing the Oklahoman. So this is what the information expectations look like. You need to plan on being that person for about 4 to 5 minutes. You're going to be recording these and posting these to discussion board. I wish we had that we met in person so that we could experience all these in person, but we work with what we have and it'll work. It works well with Zoom. So you're going to be thinking about how you're going to be this person. And you're not just going to give a list of what you've done. In 1940, I did this. And then in 1942, my family moved here. So next we did this. You're not just giving a timeline of your own events. You're going to be creating a timeline. And that timeline is going to help situate your person into historic context. What was going on during that person's life? Because that's very important, particularly for people who worked with civil rights and social justice and people who kind of broke those walls down and did very significant things. You can read through here. We'll look at it much more closely in class for week 2. Let's see, your timeline is going to be worth 25 points. And I will have a video actually. I do have a video that I can post about this presentation and the timeline. Here is a list of the Oklahomans, which we will come back to. I'll show you where you can sign up on that. Here's an example of a board that a student did in a previous semester. Is it perfect? No. Is it good? Yeah, it's pretty good. And then here is how you will be scored on these 2 pieces that go together, because this timeline is going to be on your historic Oklahomans' life. Yet again, you're going to be providing context to what was going on locally and within the state, what was going on nationally, maybe internationally. Depending on when they lived, there were likely some very significant events going on at this time that could have impacted the person and their experiences and their accomplishments. So if you go to this link here for selected Oklahoman, you should be able to access the names here. There are plenty of names here for everyone to have options. I added a few kind of in here and there just to make sure that you do have plenty of options. Some of these are kind of personal to me, is that they're friends or people I know or have known, and people that I've read about my whole life. People like Maria Tallchief and Yvonne Shoto, who were some of the very first Native ballerinas, and Maria Tallchief was the first prima ballerina. She's Osage and passed away just a few years ago. So look through the list, and just like the other list, it's first come, first serve. Whoever claims it first gets to be that person. So don't worry about male, female, or racial difference or anything like that. This is not going to be acculturation. This is different. In fact, that's something that we're going to look at later on in the semester in one of your social studies entries, social studies collection entries. What is acculturation? Well, representing people this way in informative ways for purposes of education, this is not acculturation. So you can use items. You may want to use like a baseball glove, or if you have a shirt that has NASA on it and you want to represent one of the sort of say space people, astronauts on here, such as Shannon Lucid, then please do that. Please do something with your appearance to at least, indicate that you are not being yourself, that you are presenting someone else. And I will add that other video. I will also add this video right up here at the top. And in the meantime, let me know what kind of questions you have. Do be reflecting on your own social studies experiences, because that's something that we're going to look at in a fun way when we meet next week. So I will see you then.